Hey there, it's CryptoHappenings, doing my very first video, and before I get started, I want to put a little disclaimer in that I don't know whether Bitcoin is a bubble or not, whether any crypto is a bubble or not, and it doesn't matter who you are, me, or anyone else, regardless of experience, no one can tell you whether cryptocurrency is in a bubble or not. Okay, so first, I'm going to look at the dot-com bubble. It's a little bit before my time, but I think it shows a lot of resemblance to Bitcoin at the moment. And it was basically at the dawn of the internet when the hype was leading up to it quite significantly. Loads of websites were getting loads of capital pumped into them just because they were a website as opposed to them offering very much function. You can relate that sort of in a way to some cryptocurrencies that don't have function at the moment but promise function in the future. So they don't actually have a lot of value at the moment, but people anticipate they will do sometime in the future. Of course, another reason why the dot-com bubble got so big was a thing called FOMO, called meant to stand for fear of missing out. And when I speak to a lot of people about Bitcoin personally, a lot of them are like, "Oh wow, you've made that much money. How do I get involved?" They have no idea what Bitcoin is, no idea what any cryptocurrency is, but they want to get involved just because other people have made money, which makes them like rush into investments. And these sort of people are likely to pull out of investments should they ever see a sharp drop, which, in turn makes other people pull out of investments and it can help the bubble pop. So, what would actually happen if the bubble did pop, presuming it is a bubble? In the dot-com bubble, the the amount of money lost in like the years leading after the pop of the bubble was close to about 80% of the total money put in to all the .com websites. Now, I can't say whether Bitcoin or other cryptos will have about 80%. Realistically, some of these sites didn't drop that much. A lot of them dropped 100%, or some of them might have even dropped more than 80%, but somehow survived. What did happen though was most of these websites didn't survive. And if you look at all these cryptocurrencies we have now, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Is it likely that if the bubble did pop, that all of these would survive? I mean, I've been involved in crypto for a while now, but I would not be able to name you all of these cryptos. And based on the market cap of some of these, it's unlikely that they would survive, I think, personally. Which ones would survive? I would say there's a good chance the top 10 would. Bitcoin definitely would survive, no question about that. Price obviously would plummet. Ethereum, yeah, probably all of them would, I think. In terms of the ones after the top 10, though, it's sort of getting a bit risky whether they would survive because a lot of these still don't offer any function even after years of being out. So I think any with realistic functions that have, a way for them to keep their price up would survive. So I'm sure if you've been in crypto for a while, you've heard of Mt. Gox and what happened there, and the price of Bitcoin did actually before get into what a lot of people would definitely describe as a bubble. According to this, it got just under £1,000 and then slowly over the course of about just under 2 years got down to 260. I think it went a little bit lower than that. So you could say here Bitcoin's already been in a bubble, and then the price went down by about 80%, a bit similar to the dot-com bubble. That's the sort of amount I would expect Bitcoin to drop if this happened again. Other cryptos could drop less, some could drop more, but if they are dropping more than 80%, odds are they might not survive. So what would actually happen to Bitcoin if the bubble did pop? Well, if you look here, this slope originally, when I started investing, it wasn't quite as steep as it was before, and I didn't think it was a bubble. But when we get here, it just starts to really quickly increase in price, which is why personally I'm thinking more and more that Bitcoin isn't a bubble. Just because around this time, lots of new people are getting into the game because of the people here that made lots of money, as opposed to them thinking Bitcoin has anything useful to offer them. They don't use it as a store of value, and they don't use it as a currency because they only use it as a medium of exchange to make money. Now that's their choice, but that does put Bitcoin in a sort of bubble situation. Here we can see like a peak of about 17,000. It's dropped a bit since. At about 15,000, if it dropped now, you'd expect it to drop to about £3,000 if the bubble were to pop. If it got up to 20,000, you could expect it to drop to 4,000. If it got to 25,000, 5,000, etc. That's how much I believe Bitcoin would drop. How long would it take to drop like that? I think with how volatile it is, I think it would only take a few days to drop to about 50% of its current value. I think within hours it would lose about 30-40% of its current value. But then after that point, the decline would be much more slow, but it would turn into a sort of bear market for a good year or so. If it was a bubble and it did pop, that'd be bad for a lot of people. Personally, I would quite like that because after that point, I don't think another bubble would form, and that would enable it to be used a bit more for what it was meant for. What I personally believe it was meant for is just a way to beat inflation and beat fiat currencies. Lots of people use it for a store of value, which sort of goes hand in hand with what I was thinking it was for, and also as a currency, of course. But I think other cryptos are just so much better for currencies than Bitcoin that there's not much point in using Bitcoin as a currency. Not with the amount of people using it today. Obviously, if it was a bubble and it did pop, users would drop significantly and it could be used as a currency again. But long distance in the future, the same sort of problem would happen, unless the miners, of course, had wanted to implement the Lightning Network, in which case, obviously, it could then be used as a currency. Okay, thanks guys, that was my first ever YouTube video, so please don't be too scary in the comments, dissing me about how it's totally not a bubble and that I'm an idiot, etc, etc. I don't know if it is a bubble. I think up until here, up until under 10,000, I thought, no way, Bitcoin's not a bubble, it's just getting popular. Lately, I'm not too sure because that's a lot of growth to me. Yes, it really depends what happens in the future. This shot up really fast before New Year to about 20,000. I'd definitely scale back my Bitcoin because I'd be quite scared of it being a bubble that's about to pop then. But yeah, prior to this, I was 100% not a bubble. I'm not too sure now. I would say it's 50-50 in my own opinion.